morning.
Morning, Razor.
Firstly, how is Callum Wilson?
Yeah, Callum's okay. He's been feeling an illness for a few days, so a little bit run down. We'll see how he is again today.
And Kieran Trippier, you spoke after the match at Southampton and you suggested he was fine. Is that the case?
Yeah, we think so. No problems with Kieran. I think always looks probably more than it is when a physio comes onto the pitch, but he came out second half, he was fine. And as I said, it was my decision to take him off.
Has anyone else picked up an injury since the weekend?
Not as far as I know, Razor, no.
With the game against Crystal Palace then, will you be looking at potentially freshening things up and making some changes, given that you've had quite a busy Premier League schedule and also you've got a lot of players who are eager to play?
Yeah, I think we've got a combination of a few situations. We've got a lot of players that are eager to play and show their qualities. We do have a number of games this week. Very tight turnaround, 6 days, 3 games. So we'll try and make the right call for the team while acknowledging that we are desperate to progress in the competition and we want to do well in it. So I've got to make those choices and get that balance of the team right.
Could it be an opportunity for someone like Elliot Anderson, who started at Tranmere in the previous round and came on late on at the weekend? Yeah,
he'd be one of a number of players pushing. I think when you look at the squad we picked for Southampton, and you look to the lads that didn't start, there's a lot of quality there. A lot of players have done very well historically in the team. So I've got no doubt about their ability to come in and do well if given the opportunity. So I think it's a great position for me to be in.
You just touched on it there and you made reference to it on Sunday after the match, the importance of the League Cup to you this season. Clearly that hasn't changed. Given how well things have gone for you in the league, you still want to have a good cup run? Yeah,
it doesn't change. The league form is, of course, so important to us as well, but we want to do well in the cups. In every competition we enter, we want to try and give the best representation of ourselves. I said very early days here that my dream is to try and win something for Newcastle, and that hasn't changed.
There's going to be a sellout crowd at St James's Park. It will be a club record for a home match in this competition, which I think says everything about the appetite that there is for watching you at the moment. But after such a memorable first half of the season, is it nice to be at home this week with 2 big games to hopefully keep your supporters, make them happy and finish on a high before the World Cup? Yeah,
I think naturally when you go into the cup draw, first thing you want is a home tie. So we're always so proud to play in front of our own supporters, and I think when you have a quick turnaround, the 3 games in 6 days, the fact we've got the next 2 at home is a big lift for us.
And finally, Crystal Palace, you've already played them once at St James's Park this season. They had a good win, a big win at the weekend late on. What do you make of the way that they have performed this season and how things may or may not have changed for them since you played them in the Premier League?
Yeah, I don't think too much has changed since that game. I think they very well coached team. I think they've slowly but surely changed the philosophy of play. I think now you see a team that consistently plays up from the back. They've got a clear method in their build-up. Very good, talented players, very dangerous players in the forward areas. So I think Patrick's done a brilliant job. I think he continues to improve the team, and we know it'll be a tough game.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick.
Eddie, today marks your official first-year anniversary at the club. Congratulations. I wonder if we can just rewind briefly. 12 months ago, did you ever envisage that the club would be in this run of form? What was the one area that you looked at instantly and thought that has to change if results are going to pick up? And what in your mind did you believe was achievable and realistic at that stage to where you are now?
Quite a few questions. Thank you. Thank you for the anniversary nod there. Yeah, I feel like I've been answering these questions for a couple of weeks now, but I think taking myself back, it was very much we knew we were in a big fight to stay in the league, and I think when you know you're coming into that situation, I think there's a few fundamental things you need the team to deliver, and I think one of them was really, really good emphasis on our training, and our training performances then morphing into how we played. So we wanted to be really solid. We wanted to try and improve our defensive record, and that came down to really drilling the players on the training pitch, and their attitude to that work from day one, as I've said many times, was so good. And I think that was where we tried to put all our emphasis into the work, because we felt we had players that were capable at the other end of scoring goals. We just needed to try and solidify the team really.
You made a pledge also, and you've already stressed today, Eddie, to have a real go at the cup competitions. How important is it that the players try and marry their Premier League form by going deep into the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup to come, of course?
Yeah, I think it is a mentality. I think it's when you play any game, I think you've got to get the mindset right. You've got to have everybody that's involved in the game with the same mindset that we want to win, we want to progress, and we're ambitious, and that we can dream, and we can dream big. So that's what I've tried to encourage at the football club, and I've got to say that the players have embraced that, and I think they would mirror my thoughts. There's no dead games here. It's that every competition is huge, and we want to try and do as well as we can.
Could be a big week also for a number of Newcastle players with regard to the England World Cup squad announcement. Callum Wilson, Kieran Trippier, maybe even and Dan Burnett. I mean, how nice a reward would it be for them from a club perspective with that announcement due, and as part of the club's journey that they're on as well?
Yeah, I mean, I want my players to fulfil all their dreams and ambitions, and it's such a delicate thing because you know that it's in the hands of obviously the managers of the national teams, and I know from speaking on behalf of managers, it's very difficult when you have those decisions to make, and you're going to disappoint some people. It's a really strange week, really, not something I've not experienced before, where you have a World Cup selection during sort of a busy spell of games. So I'm sure a lot of the players will be looking at what's going to happen this week, while obviously focusing on the games that we have short term, because very quick turnaround, as I've said. So a lot of emotions, I'm sure, flying around, but hopefully for our respective players, hopefully they can get called up. I want all of them to do as well as they can.
Crystal Palace on Wednesday, obviously. John Joe Shelvey, Alan Saint-Maximin, Elliot Anderson, they all came off the bench on Sunday. Do they come into the equation on Wednesday as part of squad rotation, getting managing players' minutes as well, getting their fitness levels up?
Well, yeah, they're quality players, the ones that you've mentioned. So of course they come into contention, as do the others that haven't played as much as they would have liked due to the form of the team being so good, and my team selection being consistent based on those good performances. So I've got a lot of players that are desperate to play. As I said, I've got to try and get that selection right. Last
one from me, Eddie. There was a statistic off the back of Sunday. Newcastle, the best joint defensive record in the Premier League this season, conceding 11 along with leaders Arsenal. I mean, how satisfying is that for all the plaudits and accolades you've been receiving at the other end of the pitch, that you're keeping teams out as well, which is, managers would say, is half the battle? Well, it is, and I said that when we first came in, that was probably the area that we focused on the most. And then, of course, as you go through, and we stayed in the league, then you want to develop other areas of the team as well, while not losing that core defensive solidity that you need to be successful. I think we saw it in evidence against Southampton, where we weren't at our best, but I thought we defended our 18-yard box and our goal very well through a combination of the team and the defenders and the goalkeeper. So very pleased with everybody. Super. Thanks, Eddie. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Jeff?
A lot of managers sat there before you and said, we're going to give it a go in cup competitions, but probably not many have had the ammunition that you've got. I mean, this is a realistic proposition to win a cup this year, isn't it?
It is something we would love to do. We would love to go far in the competition. I'm reluctant to talk about winning things too early. Look, we're at very early stages of the competition. We've got a really tough game against a Premier League team. But I believe we have the team and the squad to cope with that. But as I've said earlier, we need to approach every game in the right way.
Given that you're on such a great run, I mean, how disappointing is it really that you're going to be, obviously you're going to be busy, but there's going to be a break for a few weeks? Yeah,
I think it's probably, if you gave me a choice, I'd want to carry on and play, but it's been in the calendar and it's there, and it's a chance for our players to go, and hopefully some of them go and represent their countries at the World Cup. So a great thing for them. For us, it'll be a chance for us just to have a little downtime, regroup, assess what we've done, and then hopefully have a slight mini pre-season and come back fit and ready to go.
Bruno and the Brazil team, disappointed for Joe Linton?
I think there's always an element of disappointment for anyone that misses out. I think Joe has been incredible for me since I've joined the football club. Every single day he's very consistent in his work, and he's produced some brilliant performances, but it wasn't to be for him. For Bruno, a very proud moment for him and his family. Delighted for him on a personal level.
when you look at that Brazil squad, doesn't matter what anybody else puts out, got to be favourites, haven't they?
I haven't even looked at the odds or anything, genuinely. So, yeah, I've seen some of the players in their squad. They've got top level players, so they've got a great chance.
Okay, thank you, broadcasters. Damien?
Eddie, Jeff alluded to it there. It's been well documented that Newcastle haven't won a trophy since '69, not a domestic trophy since '55. And lots of good managers and teams have not managed to address that. Do you feel that burden as a manager and players?
I don't know if burden's the right word. I tried to look at it the other way. It's not been done for a long time, and a chance to create maybe some of our own history here and leave a legacy of, hopefully, of winning something. That I think that should be a driver, not a pressure that's a negative on us. I tried to look at it the other way.
And your first year here, I think everyone would agree, has been a huge success. What does the second year hold?
Well, yeah, it's a difficult one to answer. Hopefully more of the same in the sense of what we've delivered this season, really. I think changes will happen in terms of the external forces that will work maybe against us in terms of expectation and other things that can come into play. I think we've just got to try and stay under that and away from that and just concentrate on what we're delivering as best we can. So really just focus on the football and the principles behind our game. And who knows, you can't predict football, and that's why everyone loves the game so much, because you can never tell what's going to happen. But the only thing we can control is our effort levels and our commitment to what we're doing.
Martin?
So on England, Eddie, how tense is Callum at the minute? And can you give us an insight into how hard he's worked in his rehab to get back to playing now, and what that spell was like from just
Yeah, well, Callum's very, very driven and motivated individual. He always has been since I've worked with him. Very focused. He's got a great energy and confidence about him. The real positivity that any time he has a disappointment or a setback, he goes again, and he's very good at focusing himself on his task at hand. So when he came back from the injury that he suffered earlier in the season, I saw a real drive and ambition to get back as quickly as possible in the best shape and start scoring goals again for us. England wasn't really part of our conversations. It was all Newcastle. But I know, knowing him well, it was part of his driver. And yeah, he committed to that brilliantly. He came back in brilliant shape and he scored and performed very well for the team. So I've not seen a different Callum Wilson this week. He's been unwell and slightly under the weather, and I think that's been evident. So we need to now look after him and protect him and make sure he gets his full strength back before we put him back on the pitch.
We can't see what's going to happen, but in terms of two cruciates, Newcastle Achilles, hamstring problems, it would be an incredible achievement for his will if he was to make the World Cup squad now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I think any player has those moments, disappointments. I don't think you'll get to Callum's stage of his career without any kind of usually injuries or moments where he's had adversity. But the key thing is how you respond to that. And every time he's faced with a difficult situation, he comes back stronger and better for it. So I think that's the biggest compliment I can pay him. He's been brilliant for me all through my management career as I've managed him. And personally, I think he's an incredible character to have in a squad when you're going to try and win a cup competition, because he's got a brilliant mentality to winning.
And Kieran seems a more shoe-in of a choice. You obviously worked with him before. Did you know you would have this much of an impact in Newcastle in terms of his standards and how well he's played and everything inside the dressing room? Well,
I think when you sign a player, you sign them for their qualities and their strengths, and I hoped he could. But you never quite know how that's going to go into the team. I think he's been absolutely incredible, and I think he was incredible in the short period of time he had before he got injured, which was a huge blow for us at the time, and our battle to stay in the division. Because you could see, I think he scored the free kick at Everton, the free kick at Aston Villa, and he was making a tangible difference on the pitch. Then his difference was made off the pitch as he got injured, and he's come back this pre-season, and yeah, I think his numbers and his stats are at the highest level. I think he's been incredible for us.
Okay. Kieran?
Any players probably don't need to be reminded they'd be immortals if they were to win a cup. With it being so early in the journey, have you spoken to them about that or used it as an incentive at all?
No, not at this stage, I don't think, Kieran. I think we've, as I said going back, I'm just trying to think back. We did a presentation on sort of the history of the club, and we made references to the fact of how long it had been since we had won a domestic cup competition, and that's something we of course want to change in the future. So it's sort of there for us. It's we know it's in the subconscious that we're working towards that, but I don't think I can place too much emphasis on it. It's about our performance tomorrow. It's about our mentality to try and win again and progress through the next round.
With the World Cup, obviously a lot of focus on players who could get called up from here, but does a tournament like that also give you a chance to keep an eye on the players maybe one day you could bring in as well?
I think, of course, it's a great platform for players to show their skills and showcase what they can do. So, we'll be looking at it from, if we have players involved, our own players involved, it'd be a great environment to see them play and how they do for their respective countries, but also from a recruitment tool, yes, for sure.
Okay, Dominic?
A lot has been made about the progress that has happened at the club over the past 12 months, and one of your players interestingly said on Sunday that maybe more focus should be on looking ahead, buying into the sort of process you've set out, rather than looking behind and patting yourselves on the back maybe a bit too much. I'm just wondering to what degree you share that sentiment, if at all.
Can you just explain a little bit clearer what you mean?
You're looking to the future rather than looking and reflecting on yourselves and saying, yes, a lot of progress has been made, but we've still got further to go. We're still on this journey, so to speak.
Yeah, I think we're very aware that. I'm never one. I'm one for looking back, for learning from past mistakes, really, and trying to evaluate yourself and your team to do better. So we've looked at the Southampton game, and certainly areas we could have improved in that performance, and then trying to make sure we take that into our next few games. So I don't think we are a group that want to look back. The last year has happened, it's finished. Now we've got to try and go again, because football never stands still, and you're always judged, on your next game, and that's how it's always been and how it will always be.
Chris Wood may well start this game on Wednesday. How important is it for him that he's going into it on the back of a good run out at Southampton, on the back of a goal?
Really important for attacking players to try and score and contribute. And Chris did that really well on Sunday. Came on a game that wasn't necessarily going to be a dominant team performance. We weren't in that moment in the game. It was a really tight game, 1-0. And the goal he scored the finish shouldn't be underestimated. I think he received the ball with his back to goal. A quick turn and a brilliant finish right into the corner. And I think that goals were the highlights of our performance really on Sunday, and I think that second goal was the pick of them.
Jordan?
Just going back to the World Cup, Gareth Paul got a call up for Australia. Just first of all, how pleased are you for him still only 18 years of age, and in terms of his work permit situation, are you aware how that could be affected in January?
Yeah, really pleased for him personally. I think he's doing very well. We're really pleased with his progress, and the call up was something I know when I spoke to him when he came over. He was really passionate about and hopeful for, but he's done well enough to secure that call up. So delighted. We hope that he can be involved in the World Cup and have a real impact, and that will help us hopefully see him sooner.
And just for the goalkeeper situation on tomorrow, we've got 3 goalkeepers, Nick, who obviously played every game so far. Either got Caldwell was back from injury, Loris Karius. How do you approach that? Do you look to rotate in that area?
Same as the outfield players, really. We'll make a decision on our team tomorrow. So we'll finish training today, and I'll have a full idea of who's fit and available, and then I'll make my decision overnight.
Okay, thank you. Craig?
One, Nelly, 2 questions, different subjects. On the World Cup, if you were Gareth, bear in mind this is sort of a bizarre, you finish the Premier League season, you go into the World Cup straight away. Would you be picking players who are in teams who are in form and in the top 3? To that end, if you're looking at Newcastle's players, does your current form and position on the table give them a massive leg up in many ways, and that should be taken into consideration?
Craig, I'm not going to start talking or telling Gareth what he should be and shouldn't be doing. As I've said so many times, I really have got a really good relationship with Gareth, and I think he's done an incredible job as England manager. I think he's in a very difficult position now because he actually has to pick a squad, and I think knowing how difficult it is to pick my squad sometimes, I have empathy for him in this position because he's going to disappoint a lot of players. And that's a very difficult thing to do because World Cups don't come around very often, and when you're in the peak of your powers, the next 4 years you might not be. So no, I'll leave the decisions to him, but as I say, I have empathy for him at the minute.
The point I was sort of making was there aren't any happier, more confident, more informed players than Newcastle players at the moment.
Yeah, we're in a good place, and Gareth will be watching, and he has watched our game, so he'll know all about our squad of players, and he'll have all the knowledge available to him before making his decisions.
And on the cup, what did you think looking in from the far previously when it was almost as good as on the record here that there was a policy not to progress in the cups really, that they wanted to safeguard their Premier League status? What did you think looking in from afar as to that cup policy? And
well, I certainly didn't look at Newcastle's policy. I think you can just reflect on my own at Bournemouth, which is always very difficult because you're in a difficult situation because you're trying to get as many points as you can to stay in the Premier League while trying to progress in the cup competitions. And my philosophy has always been to try and progress and build winning mentality. You don't want to go into any game and not perform. And I'm sure that was the case here. You also want to give a chance to your squad to show they're good enough and to put their claim for Premier League places. So it's a really delicate balance you've got to try and get right. I'll try and get that right for tomorrow. The most important thing is we approach the game in the right way.
Simon?
Yeah, on the nuts and bolts of the squad announcement, you touched on the problems before that. The squad's announced 2 o'clock on Thursday, and you've got a game finishing 16 hours before that. And these things leak out, and usually, there's been some preparation beforehand. Will your players know beforehand, and will you know, and will you protect them and make decisions based on that? If Callum knows on tomorrow night before the game and he's in, then you might hold back, or you might be, I don't know, there's problems in there and issues in there for you to deal with.
There is. I actually don't know the answer to those questions. I don't know. I assume the squad will be announced and everyone will find out genuinely when the squad is announced for the first time. So I've got no idea whether anyone will know beforehand.
Yeah.
It's not something I can control or do anything about. I will pick the team tomorrow with all the fit players that I have, and I'll try and pick the strongest team, I think, to win that game. We'll have to deal with all the emotion and the fallout of the squads as they get announced.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was going to ask about is your whole demeanour at the moment is you're actually taking on the pressure of Newcastle being contenders in the top 3, and wanting to win a cup, and you're not shy of saying that. In the past, things have been kind of talked down a little bit. Is that part of your mindset to just embrace the pressure of this club and what is demanded? I mean, it's unusual for a manager to say yes, we want to win it.
Well, I think I think you have to. I mean, I couldn't sit here and say we don't want to progress, we don't want to win. That wouldn't make sense to me or my players. As I say, if I'm putting the very high expectations on them in terms of their performance and what I want them to deliver, then I have to do the same upon myself and what I think about for the team. So I'm not making any promises or pledges. I think that's the key thing. I'm not saying we will. I'm saying we will give our very, very best every game to try and win.
35 days after Newcastle won their last trophy, a 1969 man walked on the moon. So it shows how long ago that was.
That's a nice way of putting it, I think.
Thanks, Sam. Lee?
A few players in January and in the summer, they didn't want to come here, and they've gone elsewhere. It hasn't really worked out for them. But now they're probably seeing from a distance you're building something special. Does that give you confidence in future windows that people might not be as worried about coming here?
I think every individual situation is very different. But yeah, I get your point in the sense that we're in a very healthy league position, and I think it does make us more attractive for potential players that we might want to sign in the future, that the club is ambitious and in a good place, and the team's playing good football and they can come and excel here. So I think it helps us definitely. You look back to where we were this time last year, and the January window was very difficult to recruit in because naturally players were wary of coming into a relegation battle. So the ones that did come, and as I've said about Bruno and Kieran in particular, where they're highly sought after players, and they came with 100% buy-in to what the club was trying to achieve, and I think they're the type of characters that we want here.
Yeah, I mean, just the mere fact that they didn't ask for relegation release clauses just show you what you're building here, the confidence in the background.
Well, I think it shows you their mentality about what they're coming into. They're going to give you 100% effort. They're not looking for a way out. If things go wrong, they're pledging their their heart and soul into what you're doing. As I said, they're the characters that you want. They're the characters that you can rely on, and that's proven to be the case.
And I've noticed your comments about Guardiola's remarks before the game. You mentioned like sort of mind games. Do you feel Newcastle with sort of tilting into new territory almost, where you're going to have different challenges to what we had before, because we're not used to people like Pep Guardiola talking Newcastle up?
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily saying mind games, but I didn't know the context and what it said it, and I didn't see the interview. I didn't know the question that he was asked, so I didn't know whether it was, as I say, the context of his answer. And so you've always got to be careful before giving an answer when you don't actually know what's been said. But yeah, I did make reference to it earlier. The challenges we face will be different now. Just people will naturally try and build us up to maybe then try and knock us down. But we just got to stay away from that and just focus on what we're doing.
Yeah, just finally on Matt Target, obviously Dan Bird's been playing very well. He's in ahead of him, but there doesn't seem to be any sort of unrest with the players that aren't playing. They're just happy to, like Chris Wood, they're happy to come in and get the chance. Is Matt Target another example of that?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's trained very, very well behind the scenes. He's very keen to play. He's I wouldn't say he's happy not to play, but I think there's a difference between being unhappy and sort of accepting of the situation. Now, I think Matt's seen the team go on a brilliant run. Dan's played very well. So I don't think he's felt that he could really have an argument about not playing currently. But that doesn't mean he doesn't want to and doesn't feel that he deserves to. So he'll potentially get an opportunity to show that in the coming weeks. He's a top quality player. There's no doubt about the level of his ability. So that's a really good position for me to be in, because I've got players that are desperate to play, that are outstanding talents.
Chris?
One, Eddie, bear with me because I don't know if my question makes any sense.
It's not unusual, Chris.
So obviously at Bournemouth, when you become manager, it's a club that you've got a long association with. You knew all the history there. Coming here was slightly different. You hadn't been at the club before, all the history we talk about here. What's it been like for you as a manager coming in and almost learning about the club at the same time, and how far do you think you are along in that process as well?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's been different, I'd say, but a healthy different for me. And that was part of the reason for wanting to come to something new and vibrant and a totally different challenge to the one that I'd had. I still feel it's a difficult one to answer. I feel I'm Newcastle through and through, but I still feel I've got a lot more to prove and to educate myself on. So I think it's been a really healthy dynamic for me to come into an amazing football club and try and take on the challenge of managing Newcastle, which is it's an amazing thing to do.
And have there been any conversations with sort of people associated with the club where they've said something about the club which has surprised you?
Little bits. It's difficult to give you an example that springs to mind, but throughout the year there's been just bits and pieces that you pick up as you go through, and I didn't know that, or I wasn't aware of this, and little bits in the history, and you're meeting ex-players and former managers, and you're picking up things all the time about what's gone on in the past, and I think which is a really important part of the jigsaw that you're trying to build in your own mind as you decide where to take the team next.
And finally, I apologise for taking you to a place that I know you didn't like to be at the time, but the Cambridge game was a big low. You said one of your lowest times here, but in terms of in your career in general, where does that sort of, how low were you at that point compared to others?
No, I think there's been lower moments. That was a huge disappointment that day, because we picked a team to win, and this goes to show you with cup competitions it's so difficult, because people can say when you make changes, could you have played a stronger team? For me, it doesn't necessarily equate. We picked a really strong team that day. We couldn't find a goal. Their goalkeeper played very well. We wanted to try and kickstart a season. It just didn't happen. But I didn't see a lack of effort from the team, which is the most important. That's why I said it wasn't the lowest I've been, because I actually thought the performance was pretty good, which may contradict the result. But sometimes you have to see through the result and go, look, I saw a team that was committed. We couldn't score. We ended up finding a way to get beat in a game that we should have won. We didn't. but I saw signs of the team emerging that ultimately has come out. So that's why it's easy to say that now, I suppose, but that's what I felt that day.
Okay, last one, Martin.
You've embraced the past at the club when you address the players. How keen are you to take your part in the club's history?
Yeah, without a doubt, that's a huge driver for me and the players. Because I think you want to leave your mark wherever you go. You want to leave your mark in a positive way, hopefully for the club and for the future, because Newcastle will live on for many, many years. And you want to sort of be remembered, I think, for someone that cared about the club and hopefully left the club in a better place than when you entered. And I think your legacy, whether you're a manager or a player, is to try and leave your mark in a positive way.